we are in the information age. Information is usually carried on material. Information is not material. It's immaterial. Now here's a wonderful thing.
This is another huge idea.
It is.
Information is immaterial.
Yes.
So if all you believe in is the material universe, information itself doesn't make sense.
It does make sense, yes, absolutely.
It does
make sense.
But you'll have to explain how information is immaterial.
Well, suppose I want to carry a message. I'm sitting on top of a mountain in Washington State, my favorite mountain up there with the snow on it. You know that mountain?
I do.
And I'm sitting on
Rainier.
Rainier. So I make smoke signals, and up they go into the air, and they're seen by some Indians 20 miles away. But they're more intelligent than me, so they've got a telephone. So they pick up the telephone, they convey the information to somebody else who types it on the internet, and it's received in Oxford. The information that's received in Oxford is not material. Material things have been used to get it there, but it itself is not material. And this gives people great difficulty.
But is the idea behind that, if my eyes read letters on a wall, I'm reading a sign,
Yes.
the letters on the sign are material.
Yes.
I am material.
Yes.
But what I gather from the letters
The concept is not material.
not reducible on any level to the material.
No.
In other words, it's not as if something has been beamed into my brain. My eyes can look at the shapes, but turning it into information is somehow immaterial.
Let me illustrate this with what actually has happened to me several times. I'm sitting at dinner, and we have lovely dinners at Oxford, you know, in our college, and the seat placings are fixed. And one night, I found myself beside a very eminent biochemist. And unfortunately, he asked me what I did. And I said, I'm a pure mathematician. And he said, how dreadfully boring. And he meant it. He meant it.
He said that.
Yes, he said that. How dreadfully boring. And I saw that this was going to be a bit of a social disaster. So I said, but don't worry about that. I know my subject is quite unsociable and complicated. So I tried to make up for that by being interested in the big questions. He said, what big questions? Well, I said, like the status of the universe. Is it created or not? He said, stop. It's far worse than I thought. He said, listen, I'm an atheist. I'm a reductionist. And we have nothing to talk about. And we're going to have a miserable dinner. Well, that was a challenge for an Irishman. So I looked at him and I said, with a great grin, because I grin, you know, when I'm panicking. A great grin, I say to him, no, we're going to have a marvelously interesting evening. He said, why is that? Well, I said, I'm fascinated by reductionism. I know at least 3 kinds. Which kind are you? Well, that was a bit difficult. So I helped him out because I'm also quite a kind, friendly Irishman.
Yeah, you're very generous.
So I said to him, look, you got a problem. I got a problem. You in biochemistry, me in mathematics, we split it up into little problems. Try and solve them, get insight on the big problem. He said, I do that. I said, I do that. That's methodological reductionism. I said, we both do that. So we have something to talk about. But he said, I'm not that kind of reductionist. I said, I know you're not. You are an ontological reductionist. Ontos, Greek for being. You believe everything can be reduced to physics and chemistry. He said, exactly. And that's why we've nothing to talk about. I said, we have. Why don't we do an experiment? He said, what? I said, you heard me. Why don't we do an experiment? But he says, this is dinner. I said, yes, but it's Oxford. And he said, what's the experiment? I picked up the menu. And he said, what's the problem with the menu? Roast chicken. I said, that's the problem. For you, not for me. He said, why? I said, R-O-A-S-T. Those are marks on paper. Yes, they are, but they say roast chicken. I said, how do you know? Well, he said, I've learned English. Oh, I said, that's very interesting. You've learned English, and you give those marks a meaning, and you're a reductionist. Everything physics and chemistry. I said, okay, you explain to me how those marks convey the idea of roast chicken, and just use the material of the paper and ink. Dead silence.
This is maybe not for you, but for most of us, this is a very deep, or as we say, heavy idea. It's at the heart of everything.
Yes,
but
it's
I've
an
never
attempt to
heard,
answer your question.
but I've never heard anyone but you talk about this issue. And I was hoping you'd bring it up, or we would come to it. But
Yes.
this is a fascinating idea.
And it goes to the heart of all we've been discussing so far about the mind and material. He looked at it, and it was very funny, actually. I must say this, because his wife was there. And she said it too loudly, she said, "Get out of that if you can." But what was amazing, he did not try. After a minute or so, he said, "It cannot be done."
He was sharp enough to see that.
But it was devastating for a man of his eminence. He said, "John," now he's getting friendly, "I have been going to my laboratory for 40 years thinking that could be done." 40 years.
So he saw through it.
He saw through it like that, like a flash. And I tried to play devil's advocate, which I can be reasonably good at. And I said, but physics and chemistry, properly spoken, have only been going 500 or 600 years. He said, it doesn't matter. You must have a mind. And he got it, you see. And this is what we're about. That the moment you see language, and this is where I want to blow a hole in the popular conception that all explanation goes from the simple to the complex. It's reductionist. Dawkins wants to explain elephants, as he says, in terms of the bits and pieces that physicists work on. I say that's marvelous where it works, and it does work. We can split water into hydrogen and oxygen and so on. But where it doesn't work, where I want to say it never works, is where language is involved. Now, the interesting thing is this. Here's a man who works on DNA. So I say, look, ROAST is 5 letters. You saw those 5 letters and you immediately postulated a mind. Now tell me about DNA, which is 3.5 billion letters, all in the right letters, of course, in a chemical alphabet, but they code. We talk about the genetic code and we're not embarrassed about it. So it's semiotic. It indicates, it's a sign, semeion, a sign. It indicates something that is meaning. What about that? Oh, he said that's chance and the laws of nature. I said, come on. ROAST, mind. 3.5 billion letters in the right order, and the longest word we've ever discovered, no mind. There's something odd going on. It's one of the most powerful evidences to my mind that there is an eternal mind behind the universe is, first of all, that we can do science, that we can do it in the language of mathematics, that we have language that we can use. We can use abstract concepts that are not material to describe things that are physical. All of that points in one direction and one direction only, and it's this: in the beginning was the Word, not the particles.